Listen to me. China just put a gate on silver exports, and most people still think this is some paperwork story. It's not. It's power. It's control. It's the kind of move you make when a metal stops being just a commodity and starts being treated like infrastructure. Right now, silver is around $91 an ounce, and gold is around $4,618 an ounce. That's not a calm market. That's a market pricing in distrust. Distrust in currencies, distrust in policy, distrust in the idea that your savings will hold value just because a statement says they will. And here's what I need you to understand. When governments and institutions feel pressure, they don't protect the public first. They protect the system first. And the system's favorite trick is simple. Change the rules on the paper side so they don't have to deliver on the physical side. Paper silver is a promise. Physical silver is a thing. A promise can be rewritten. A thing cannot. China's licensing change matters because it centralizes who can legally ship silver out. You can argue the volume today, fine, but you cannot argue the direction. The direction is fewer channels, more oversight, more control. And in a tight market, control is the whole game. Who benefits from that? Big approved exporters. State-preferred industry. The buyers with relationships and credit. The small guys get squeezed out. The public gets higher costs and longer waits. The paper market gets a new excuse to pretend everything is orderly, while the physical side tightens. That's the enemy in this story. Centralized gatekeepers plus a paper pricing system that was never designed to treat you fairly during stress. And the reason it feels manipulative is because it is manipulative. It's not always a legal manipulation. It's structural manipulation. The kind where the rules are written so the insiders always have an exit and the public always gets the bill. Now let me show you how you can tell this is real without becoming some spreadsheet nerd. First proof category. Official policy and official lists. When a government publicly names who is allowed to export a metal, that's not free market. That's rationing by permission. That's a lever. They can tighten it quietly later with zero drama. Second proof category. Price and volatility. If paper markets were truly confident that supply is fine, you wouldn't see silver acting like a pressure valve and gold acting like a lifeboat. You'd see calm. You'd see balance. Instead, you see repricing. Third proof category. The physical market behavior. And this is the one that always exposes the lie. In the real world, when demand rises and supply tightens, the premium doesn't behave like a chart. The premium behaves like a shortage. The wait times stretch. The selection narrows. The in-stock becomes pre-order, and the public is told is normal. No, it's not normal. It's the market whispering what the headlines won't say out loud. And here's the part that makes this more urgent than a normal China news clip. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening at the exact same time silver demand is being pulled by modern industry, and the West is officially labeling minerals as strategic. So you've got a metal that's needed, a supply chain that's controlled, and a paper market that can print claims faster than metal can be produced, refined, and delivered. That combination doesn't end with convenience for the public. It ends with rationing and rule changes. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how does this hit me in America? It hits you the same way every supply gate hits the public. Higher costs, lower availability, and less honest pricing. Because the spot price you see is the paper price, and the paper price can be managed with contracts, rolling positions, and cash settlement pressure, but you cannot cash settle a shortage when you personally need delivery. That's the whole difference between paper and physical. Paper ownership is a claim on someone else's performance. Physical ownership is an asset that exists regardless of someone else's performance. And if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, let me validate something you've probably been feeling. You've spent your life being responsible. You saved. You planned. You didn't live like there's no tomorrow, but the system you saved inside of is being weakened. Every year it takes more dollars to buy the same life. Every year the rules get more flexible for banks and more rigid for regular people. And now we're watching governments treat silver like a strategic input, not a free-flowing retail product. So tell me, why would you leave your protection in a form that can be changed with policy, frozen with a counterparty issue, or settle with cash, when cash is the very thing being devalued? This is why I keep coming back to one action, not 10 actions. 1. Secure physical metal. Not because you're trying to get rich quick, because you're trying to stay intact. Now let's talk about the manipulation mechanism in plain English. No lecture. The futures market sets a reference price. That reference price influences everything. But most futures contracts don't end in delivery. They end in financial settlement and rolling. That's not automatically evil. That's how the system is built. The problem is what happens when people want the real thing at scale. When the world wants delivery, the paper market has two options: deliver or incentivize people not to demand delivery. And one way you incentivize people not to demand delivery is by making delivery harder, slower, more expensive, or less guaranteed. You do it with rules. You do it with eligible versus deliverable categories. You do it with operational changes. You do it with temporary measures, and the public hears nothing to worry about until they try to get their medal. Now, I'm not telling you the entire market is going to default tomorrow. I'm telling you the window is narrowing. And the system always narrows the window first. That is how controlled breakdowns look. Not one big explosion, a series of small permission slips. China's licensing gate is one of those permission slips. And here's the historical parallel that fits this topic without using the Hunt brothers. In 1933, the US government restricted private gold ownership under emergency powers. That wasn't a theory. That wasn't a podcast rumor. That was real policy. The lesson isn't they will do the same tomorrow. The lesson is, when a government feels boxed in, it will redefine what you're allowed to hold, how you're allowed to hold it, and what price you're allowed to exchange it at. And you know what's scary? Today's version could move faster because the financial system is digital. Restrictions don't require door-to-door enforcement. They can be done through banking rails, reporting rules, and access controls. That's why your protection can depend on a permissioned system. Physical metal in your possession is not a screen number. It is not a broker statement. It is not a promise. It's wealth outside the paper game. Now, let's talk about the part that should make you act, not just listen. Because when people hear China export controls, they tend to treat it like background noise. But when a country that dominates refining and industrial supply chains starts tightening, it changes global flow. And when global flow changes, the weakest link is always retail availability. Meaning you, not the defense contractor, not the solar manufacturer, not the giant industrial buyer. You, the person buying coins and bars for personal protection, and if you wait until the crowd panics, you get the worst possible outcomes. Higher premiums, less selection, longer delays, and sometimes cash-only alternatives you didn't ask for. That's why the physical versus paper distinction has to be repeated until it's burned into your brain. Paper is a claim. Physical is ownership. Paper can be frozen or settled. Physical is a final asset. Paper depends on the system. Physical exists outside it. The paper can be multiplied. Physical cannot. Now, let me address the objection that stops people from acting. People say, I'll do it when things get worse. Listen, by the time things are obviously worse, you're not early. You're the exit liquidity. The system gives warnings before it gives consequences. This China move is a warning. A public, official, policy-level warning. And there are more warnings around you if you're willing to see them. Central banks keep accumulating gold. That's not because they love shiny metal. It's because gold is neutral money, no counterparty. It's settlement outside someone else's promise. Do you notice how the biggest players buy metal and the public is pushed into paper? Do you notice how the financial world tries to make you feel old-fashioned for wanting something real? That's not accidental messaging. That's conditioning. Because paper keeps you inside their rules. Physical takes you out. Now, let's talk practical. What does secure physical metal actually mean? Without me telling you to buy any brand or any company, it means you focus on widely recognized forms. Coins and bars that are easy to verify and easy to resell. It means you prioritize liquidity and recognizability. It means you don't build a collection to impress someone. You build a position to protect your family. It means you think about storage, honestly. Home, secure, private storage, whatever fits your risk tolerance, without relying on a promise that could be paused if the system tightens. And it means you don't confuse I own exposure with I own metal. Because an ETF share is exposure. A futures contract is exposure. A pooled account is exposure. Exposure is not ownership when stress hits. Physical in hand is ownership. Now, I want to make this painfully clear because it's the difference between sleeping at night and staring at a screen. If a crisis accelerates, paper markets can change settlement terms. They can change margin rules. They can change delivery incentives. They can suspend. They can protect liquidity. They can do a dozen things that all sound technical and all end with the same result. You don't get metal. You get a substitute. And a substitute is not protection. That's why you're here. You want protection, and you're right to want it. Now let's bring it back to China, because this is the spark. When a major supplier tightens export channels, it doesn't just affect China. It affects the entire chain of refiners, fabricators, and end users who rely on predictable flow. And when flow gets unpredictable, the market starts hoarding. Not because people are evil, but because businesses can operate on hope. They secure a supply. They build inventory. They sign deals. They pay up. And retail gets what's left at whatever price clears. That's not fear. That's supply chain math. The market doesn't care about your retirement timeline. It cares about who pays and who has priority. So if you're sitting there thinking, am I too late? No, but you're not early anymore. This is not the phase where you casually browse and assume the shelf stays full. This is the phase where you position while you still can. Again, physical metal, not paper. Physical. Now, I'm going to give you the clean takeaway you can explain to a friend in one sentence. China is tightening control over silver exports, and that's happening during a global repricing of hard assets, which increases the risk that paper silver and physical silver diverge even more. That's the setup. And when that setup plays out, the people holding physical are protected from the worst version of the game, rule changes that trap paper holders. Now, let me talk directly to you for a second, because I know who's watching. You're not trying to gamble. You're not trying to time the top. You're trying to protect what you built. You're trying to make sure decades of work don't get erased by policy, inflation, and financial engineering. And you're probably tired of being told, don't worry, trust the system. You've trusted the system your whole life. And the reward has been higher costs, weaker currency, and more rules. So no, don't outsource your protection to the same people who benefit when your dollars lose purchasing power. Bring some of that protection home. Make it real. Make it physical. Now here's what I want you to do today. Not next month. Not someday. Make a decision to secure physical precious metals as core insurance. Gold and silver, based on what you can afford and what you can hold confidently. If you're already holding physical, good, you're ahead of most people. Stay disciplined. Don't let headlines bully you into trading your insurance policy. If you're not holding physical yet, stop overthinking it. Start, because the first step is always the hardest. Once you have real metal, you'll understand why it feels different than a number on a statement. And if you're holding mostly paper exposure right now, ask yourself one honest question. In a true stress event, do I expect cash settlement or do I expect delivery? If the answer is cash settlement, then you already know it's not the same asset. Physical is the asset. Now, quick reality check about confiscation risk, because people love to either dismiss it completely or panic about it. I'm not here to panic you. I'm here to make you sober. Governments have a history of changing rules around money when they get trapped. Sometimes it's taxes, sometimes it's reporting, sometimes it's capital controls, sometimes it's direct restrictions. The point is not predicting the exact form. The point is positioning in a way that reduces dependency on permission. Physical metals, especially when stored privately and responsibly, are one of the few ways regular people can step outside the most fragile part of the system. That's why this matters. And that's why the paper versus physical distinction matters again, because it also ties into confiscation and control. Paper assets are easy to monitor, freeze, and reclassify. Physical assets are harder to control, especially when they're held directly. Now I'm going to wrap this up with a straight warning. No drama. We're entering a period where strategic materials are being treated like strategic weapons. Quietly, through licensing, approvals, and management frameworks. China did not close the door. They narrowed the doorway. And when doorways narrow, you don't wait until the crowd rushes. You move calmly while you still have room. That means one thing. Secure physical metal. Physical, not paper. Physical in your possession. Physical that doesn't require a counterparty. Physical that can't be diluted by another printout. Now, if this is clicking for you, do two things for me. Subscribe, because I'm going to keep tracking these policy moves and physical market signals as they happen, not after the fact, when the public finally notices. And in the comments, tell me this. Are you more concerned right now about currency devaluation or about access, meaning not being able to get the real metal when you want it? And hit the bell, because timing matters. With stories like this, the news always hits late. The opportunity always disappears early. Stay steady, stay practical, and don't let a paper system convince you that paper protection is the same as real protection.